Legal regulation. In our society, ethical values frequently become law, and legal regulation can affect or can reflect society's ethical views or ethical values. And this is certainly true. If we have certain beliefs, the law will evolve, and likewise, as a result of legal regulation, our ethical values will evolve. That's why they say the Constitution is a living document, because it can be interpreted over time to mean different things as society changes. It's sort of a magical thing, if you would. Now, liberty and rights. Law requires respect for liberty and rights of others. Is there any doubt in your mind of this? Certainly in this country, we want to respect our liberties. Freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom to speak, freedom from unreasonable search and seizures, etc., etc., etc. All right, and the rights of others. Certainly, we need to respect other people's property. All right, and that's been the subject of this course so far, is property. All right. Should you go on someone else's real property, someone else's land, and vandalize it? No. Okay? Should you go and steal somebody's Ninja Turtle? No, you shouldn't. Don't take my Leonardo. It's mine. My son would tell you different. He would say it's his. It's mine. I bought it. I've had it since before he was born. It's mine. Good faith. Folks, good faith comes up for me every single day. Not only from a legal perspective, but also from a business perspective. Law requires that good faith be demonstrated in various economic and other transactions. This is shown in the UCC. All sales of goods must be carried out in good faith. Folks, whenever I negotiate with insurance adjusters, with opposing counsel, we are required to do so in good faith. Meaning that we're not supposed to be mean and ugly to one another. We're supposed to do what we're supposed to. We're supposed to act ethically. Due care derives for society's expectations about how fair and reasonable actions are, and promotes the common good. Folks, whenever I do work, whenever I make these videos, I try to do what is, fair and reasonable. All right? I want to do good. Now, I do use my He-Man action figures to be humorous. However, I think this is good. All right? It keeps you entertained, in theory. And then some of you will probably email me later and say, who the heck is He-Man? For those of you that do that, I strongly encourage you to Google it and become a fan. Confidentiality appears in agency law generally, and in the professional-client relationship in particular. Folks, without confidentiality, my clients wouldn't tell me anything. I mean, if you were a serial killer that had killed 500 people and you thought that I could go tell on you, would you come talk to me? No. You've got to have that confidentiality. And not only applies as an attorney, it applies as an agent. If you're working for someone and they tell you something, shouldn't you keep that within the business? Yeah. All right. Now, there are exceptions to that. I'm sure all of you are thinking, well, what if he says he's going to go kill somebody or do something? Call the cops. Okay? But generally speaking, having confidentiality is very important. Conflicts of interest occurs when one attempts to serve two masters, and no agent or employee of one principal can secretly work for another whose interest competes with that of the first principal. Conflict of interest. Again, you'll see it as an attorney. I cannot represent a client whom I have gained, special knowledge about as a result of another lawsuit. I mean, how would that client feel if I, represented him on one thing and turned around and sued him on another? That's not good. Same thing with your employer. Do you want to work for your employer, or do you want to go out and work for a competitor? It's a conflict. Shouldn't do it. Now, code of ethics. I talked about this briefly at the beginning of the chapter, but professional code of ethics. Lawyers have the model rules of professional responsibility. Okay? This is a historic tradition. It comes from self-regulation. All right? It's important that certain businesses self-regulate themselves so that the government doesn't come in and do it. Attorneys is an excellent example of this. The bar regulates its own attorneys, and it governs itself independently of anything else. Other things would be the American Marketing Association, American Institute for Certified Public Accountants. Right? Those are examples of where there are professional codes of ethics that those individuals are required to abide by. All right. What about organizational code of ethics? Now, maybe a large organization, a large business may want to regulate itself. It might be because of lack of industry codes. Self-regulation requires enthusiasm and commitment. It also needs to provide for sanctions when necessary. Now, individual values. Let's talk about this briefly. You know, one thing people always ask me is, well, how do you know if something is ethical? How do you know if something's right or wrong? The general answer I give is, what would Mama say? And I may have already said this to you, but think about that for a second. What would Mama say? You know, is this something you'd want to do in front of Mama? Right? I know we all respect our mamas. So as we go through this list, think about Mama. All right? Have I thought if the action is right or wrong? Okay? Is it right or is it wrong? Didn't Mama used to, when you were a kid, when would she do that? And I'm not going to hit myself hard again. That actually stung. She did it when you do something wrong. So think about that. Will I be proud to tell of my action to Mama? Are you going to go tell your Mama, hey Mom, I just swindled somebody out of $1 million. What's your Mama going to say? Beat you. Am I willing for everyone to act like me? How would you feel if Mama was doing what you were doing? Will my decision cause harm? That's a no-brainer. Will my actions violate the law? Ask yourself those questions before you make a decision. And that will tell you, arguably, whether or not something is ethical.